So in the last video I was talking about planning your game and getting some ideas together, but seeing as though this is a tutorial series which is going to be really about making this game or a 3D game in Unity, I'm going to quickly go ahead and show you how I've made some sort of modular assets with one texture to help give you the idea that you can make any object or any sort of style of shape using one texture, and you can really sort of vary it and match it up to however you would really persist and want it to be in your game world. So this is the example of the sort of finished assets that we're going to be able to use within the game. So you can make any number of sort of scenes with this, with walls, floors, then a smaller section of wall, a doorway, and just some cubes as obstacles that we can go up and around, jump in and out. Now all I've got initially is, you don't need Photoshop to make this. All I made this texture is, it's got a light blue square in the back, and as you can see, if we look at the canvas size, this is just a 512 by 512 image, and it's not a really high resolution because it's a very simple texture, and we're just going to tile this so that we can make it as high resolution as we want, really. And I've just made smaller white squares exactly the same and edged it with my markers to see where we can get the perfect split of a cube, and then we're going to obviously import this into 3ds Max. And if you've got 3ds Max, I'll show you how we're going to go about creating an asset, and you can use this core idea to make anything you want. So say we start creating a box, and I'm going to create a box on the surface of my mesh, and then I'll create my box say this high, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press M to bring up the material editor. I've already got the material in my other slot, but what I'm going to want to do is bring in my material once again. So what I'll do is I'll go down to maps, diffuse color, go bitmap, and if you look in the module content, we'll go to textures and we can grab the VR textures, and I'll give all the assets that's going to be needed for this series of tutorials, and now I'll drag it on, and what we can do is we can show shade material, and as we can see, the material fits very nicely to that box already. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to get another one, and I'm going to create roughly that height. This is just for the sake of this tutorial. I'm going to drag my texture on. Now you can see this texture is very stretched, and we want it to match up with this and match up with the height of the box, so you can use your box as reference to match all the other objects up. Now we've got this box. What we want to do is go to the modifier list, and we want to find unwrap UVW. Obviously you can find this in your entire modifier stack, but I've already got shortcuts to it because these are the ones I used the most often. Now what we can do is we click the drop down on unwrap UVW, we'll click on a face we want to use, say. Then if I click the quick planar button, it'll planar map that face for me, and it'll just stick that entire text that we created in Photoshop and fix it to the face. Now we don't want to do that, obviously. What you can do is open the UV editor, and from there what we can do is at the top it'll say checkered pattern. For now we can click VR texture, so now we can actually see what it's actually placing onto our object at the very first part. So what we're going to want to do is actually scale this all the way across so we get the entirety of the texture, and then what we want to do is hold our left click and select the scale tool, which increases the values of the Y, and what we want to do is pull down, and what we'll then do is it'll actually tile our texture for us properly. So then we want to match up with, say, the top of it, and what we want to do is pull this down a little bit because it's a little bit too big. There, we can see there we've matched that up. Now what we can do is with the move tool we can just pull it up so we can match up the different sections, so we can roughly match up how it would produce this sort of square. So we match it up against this square, and obviously we can do exactly the same. We can choose the planar map, we get the scale tool, pull out, and you'll get to the edges of the boundary, and then we'll make the scale tool bigger, and then what we'll do is we'll match it up roughly to how we think we want it, and then we can use the move tool to move it down slightly, but we maybe want to match it with the boundaries of the other green UVs, and we'll just scale it down slightly, and we'll match it up with each side so we can make a perfect textured box in any way we want to do this. And obviously similarly with the floor, you just select the entire section, select the face, you can planar map it, open up the UV editor, and see that you can drag both out at the same time, and we'll drag it all the way up to say here, and you'll notice that we've almost matched it to how it was before, but we need to make sure we maybe scale out a little bit this way. It's just so we can match the objects as we see fit, maybe to here, and it matches the underside as well. So the thing that you've got to imagine is maybe you want to make your floor first, and then you can make every other object match in terms of style in each case. But obviously I will provide all these models and textures to go straight in, but this is just initially showing you how you can make these objects and how you can texture them very easily within the 3ds Max and make any array of objects that you want with one style of texture, saving a lot of demand on the engine and on computers if you're only using one texture and using very low poly objects. And then one last thing to note is something that you can do. Say you've finished with all your objects, I always like to just select them all, right click on them and convert to editable poly so we don't have any issues there. Then we can go to File, Export, Export up here, then you can save them wherever you want. I'll just save it to desktop, and then we'll name this as maybe VR Objects, and then we'll save it as an Autodesk FBX. We'll press save. Then what you want to do really to bring your textures with you when we import into Unity, you want to make that this option here under embed media is ticked, and then it will always bring any texture that you've saved in your scene with it. So we can press OK, and then we'll have this FBX exported out ready to go for the next tutorial. See you then.